we actually stopped around the 58th verse. But someone read 54 to 57 so we can refresh our mind and we can enter into that 58th verse. Someone read, please.
When they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, and they gnashed at him with their teeth. But he, full of the Holy Spirit, gazed into heaven and saw the glory of God, and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. And he said, Look, I see the heavens opened, and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God. Then they cried out with a loud voice, stopped their ears, and ran at him to kill him.
Stephen has preached a spectacular sermon. Took us through the history of the Old Testament and brought us to the fact of the Pharisees and Sadducees and those that were around that Jesus is the Christ. And they're so cut to the heart, the scriptures say, they begin to gnash their teeth. The Word of God will either draw you or drive you. And they chose to allow it to drive them away and to draw them to murder. And notice that this 58th verse, that they cast him out of the city and stoned him, and the witnesses laid down their clothes at the feet of a young man named Saul. Very important. It's amazing how nothing is by chance. That on that very day, this is the same Saul that will be changed to Paul, writes 3/4 of the New Testament, is there at the murder of this first martyr. Isn't God amazing? He knew it was going to happen. The devil was just trying to get rid of the gospel, but he didn't know that God had another plan. And all of our lives have purposes. We have plans, so never forget that. Look at us go into that commentary. Someone read that first paragraph and see next.
Son of Stephen bore public testimony to send the heavens open. The mob refused to listen to him further. They cried fiercely, charged upon him, dragged him outside the city walls and stoned him.
Has anybody ever been so mad at you for preaching the good news or sharing the gospel that they wanted to fight you? That's a question. Think about it. We've been in some situations. Most of our arguments or fights is something we did or some prideful thing that we were trying. But when it came to the good news, sharing the gospel, they got so upset that they wanted to fight you or kill you. Not many of us have encountered that type of opposition. But here we see Stephen. The demons are literally after him, and very important to know, God allows it to happen. That can be troubling. We know that he's in the presence of God. He's seen Jesus stand up on the right hand of the Father. His face is like an angel, but God allows them to attack him. It's an amazing thing to me. Go ahead, please, and read that next paragraph.
Yes, if incidentally the Spirit records the name of a young man who stood guard over the close of the firstborn execution. The name is Saul. It is as if the Spirit would say to us, remember that name. You will hear it again.
We're going to hear a whole bunch later. This whole process, I want you to really start looking at your lives and see God working and moving. I talk to a lot of people in counseling sessions and people who come to Ebenezer, and I go, isn't it amazing how you got to Ebenezer? We all have different stories. It used to be with the Ebenezer, the way you entered into Ebenezer was by what? Family, bloodline. It really was just bloodline. You kind of had to know somebody to get into Ebenezer. But over the years, we think we got people from New York, Baltimore, all these different places. Some from Hawaii. We got Puerto Ricans. We really do. We just got all kinds of people that have come and verged in this place at 2700 West Vandalia Road. It's amazing to me. In this same accord, we see that Saul, and we're going to focus on that name, Saul, his pre-Christian name, he is right here at the right time to see this terrible murder. This is a terrible murder. Someone read 59, please. How do you kill somebody while they're calling on the Lord? Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. And they're killing him. They're stoning him, which is pretty gruesome. We look at knives or someone shooting, but to take up a stone, and not just one stone, but just keep throwing it at somebody until they die, that's just the worst case scenario. To me, I'm going to pick up the stone and throw it back. But notice at this point, so many stones, he doesn't fight back. That's an amazing thing. Very important. As he's being stoned, he was calling on God, and he asked the specific thing, Jesus, or Lord Jesus, what? Receive my spirit. His whole thought is not, I would have prayed, Lord, save me. Don't let me die. Strike them down. Deliver me from this. That would have been our prayers, but he is ready to die. He is ready to be with Christ. Amazing factor. Someone read verse 60, please.
Then he knelt down and cried out with a loud voice, Lord, do not charge them with this sin. And when he had said this, he fell asleep.
There you go. Good job. Now, this shows the sense of control. This is very important. He did what? He knelt down. Right? What does it tell us? Yeah, he was still in control. He didn't fall down. He knelt down. Praying position or whatever you want to think. He knelt down. Cried with a loud voice again. Still strong. Still strong. Lord, do not what? I gotta grow. Now, some of y'all may be there, but to see my murderer throwing stones at me and to be able to kneel down and pray, Lord, forgive me. That's amazing. Because some of us are carrying stuff against people and ain't never thrown a stone at them. And we can't forgive them, but he is in the middle. They're still throwing it at him. They're still throwing the stone, and he's saying, Lord, forgive me. And I love that last part we're going to talk about. And he fell what? Asleep. Yes, ma'am.
And that's hard, like you said, that's hard. It's got to be really hard. But also, you can see the end. You can look up and see Jesus stand beside God, evidently God had never ceased to praise. And he knew where he was going. And he knew where they were going if he didn't pray for them if they didn't get a change. So, I mean, that's what we as Christians, we want even people that hate us and do things against us, that want to hurt us and our families, you know, the scriptures, the word requires us to pray for this. And that's what he's doing, but he can see something beyond this world, and that's what it takes. That's what we've got to do. Reading the Bible, reading Revelation, we've got to see something beyond this world, or we never going to get it.
That's good. Yeah.
I agree with that. I've been watching the Bible and it's been times as I've been reading and see and actually see it takes a full person of people to continually take rocks and throw at a person's head and continue to do that. I mean, his body, but to see it in his head and to kill him. That visual just, I mean, it just broke my heart. And then he had to, ask the doctor.
It's powerful. It does. And she brings out the cruelty of man. And you say, oh, I'd never do that. Thank God for Jesus. But some, I'm serious, I think all of us pre-Christ and maybe even after Christ had some thoughts. You just like, ooh, how can I get away with this without the police catching me? I'm serious. We had thoughts, but we see the immense cruelty when you open yourself up to the demons, what can happen. See, ready to go. He's a young guy. Amen. Yeah.
In their defense, though, they thought that this was a foreign god, a false god in their territory. And the things in the Old Testament, if someone was blaspheming God, They took stones and they threw them at their head. So biblically, in their law, they were in the right place. But reading the scriptures, they should have been able to examine this more and figured out, oh, this might be of God. I mean, it took Saul on the Damascus Road a light out of heaven and a big booming voice to convince him that Jesus was actually God. And they didn't really have that at that point.
Thank God for Jesus. Thank God for Jesus, because we've taken religion sometimes, those scriptures, and manipulated them and came up with all kinds of things to hurt people. So this same process, we see them, if they truly were following God, they would have been able to discern that. Look at this next part. Stephen's death resembled that of our Lord. He prayed, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. Verse 59. Jesus had prayed, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Luke 23:46. We talked about this on Sunday, that when we follow Christ, we're going to be transformed to be like him, become more. Specifically, Stephen is looking like Christ. He's talking like Christ. His whole mentality is like Christ. How far are we from that picture, that perfect, mature picture of becoming like Christ? Look at that number 2. He prayed, Lord, do not charge them with this sin. Verse 60. Jesus had prayed, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Luke 23:34. Forgiveness is at the top of the left. And as we are walking and becoming more like Christ, we've got to forgive. We've got to let things go. And we see this at this critical moment that this cruelty is coming against him. He's forgiven. Look at that next paragraph. It says, does it not suggest that through occupation with the Lord, Stephen had been transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord? 2 Corinthians 3:18. I think our biggest purpose as we walk through Acts and we look at the different characters, where are we in our walk? And you hear this a lot. Where are you with your matriculation, that step-by-step walk with the Lord? How close are you to becoming more like him, as we said earlier? You got to look at that. I can't gauge that for you. Only you know where you came from. We all started at different points within our lives, but you never stop. And my concern in the building and the fellowship sometimes, we get okay. We don't cuss, we don't drink, we don't smoke, we don't do bad texts anymore, but we feel like we have arrived. And we stop growing, but you never stop growing. The longer that you've been in the fellowship, the more like Christ you should look. But so often, the people I see that have been in the fellowship longer look more like the devil than they do Christ. And we've got to make sure, the remnant, if we are the remnant, we're supposed to look like Jesus. Very important. Someone go ahead and read that next paragraph, please.
Then having prayed, he fell asleep. When the word sleep is used in connection with death in the Old Testament, the word refers to the body, not the soul. The believer's soul goes to be with Christ at the time of death. 2 Corinthians 5:8. The body is pictured as sleep.
Isn't that cool? Now, I've seen some people die. I've seen some people die. They didn't know Jesus. They died. But it's so good to know those who are in Christ, they just fall asleep. It's a beautiful picture that we don't have to fear death anymore. God has delivered us from the fear of death all by way of Christ. He died on the cross. He was buried in that tomb, but he got up on the third day, which gives us the assurance that we will rise. We will get up. Paul even takes it to the point, the same Saul who's witnessing this murder, that to be absent from the body means to be present with the Lord. That whole process. Look at that next paragraph. Please go ahead. Ordinarily.
Ordinarily, the Jews were not allowed to carry out the death penalty. This was reserved for their Roman overlords, John 18:31b. But the Romans seem to have made an exception when the temple was built.
This goes back to Tabitha. I was kind of trying to wait to this point. But they did not have the authority to do this. We saw it in the Old Testament, but under the Romans were in control, they were not supposed to kill their own people. But somehow they had a loophole that they were able to stone Stephen. It's amazing that even with the authority and our rules of the nation, people always come up with loopholes. They really do. And I used to didn't believe that. I thought that our court systems were just really, really good and everything like that until I had to go through them with some people. Now some people just jacked up. They messed up and they deserve what they've got. But others, because they didn't have better representation or even the color of the skin sometimes, they didn't have a fair trial. And we see this whole process. But here, they weren't even supposed to be killing anybody, but they found loopholes to go ahead and do it. And Stephen was that person that received that wrath. Stephen had been accused of speaking against the temple. And though the charge was unfounded, he was executed by the Jews. The Lord Jesus had been accused of threatening to destroy the temple, Mark 14:58. But the testimony of the witnesses conflict. So we see all these similarities between Stephen and Christ. Amazing. He's the first martyr, showing the picture that we have to die daily to ourselves. Yes, sir.
The greatest of all similarities is there's no similarity in this. Jesus is the one that saved me, not Stephen. Even though I love the sacrifice he went through, and I love him, but I can only look at one.
And that's a wonderful thing that we see through Stephen's life. It points all to Christ. The only reason he's doing this is because he's been changed. And we all can testify that the only reason that Stephen didn't run, the only reason that we spent 2 hours going through his sermon was because he was focused on Christ and the Holy Spirit was using him. Yes, sir. And it doesn't take years and years and years. From the point of Christ dying to this point where Stephen, we're just talking a few years or so when you look at it, and it's hard to really date it, but it did not take a whole long time for him to be matured in Christ, to die for the faith. So please understand, a lot of times we're like, well, I'll get it in 10 years. No, God's saying, submit yourself and give yourself, and he will grow you. Brother Rick.
Also, I think Stephen, he had a feeling that something was bigger going on with his death, although he was going to be sacrificed. And it was with Saul standing there watching, the writer of most of the New Testament. So I just think Stephen felt like that. Yeah, I have to sacrifice, but I know God is going to use my death for something great.
And that's interesting coming from Rick, considering your testimony of, getting a new heart. I mean, Rick could have said, well, if I take somebody else's heart, that means that somebody else might die. And so since I'm already in my 50s or so, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and lay down my life so somebody else can have a heart. But no, did Rick do that? He said, God, no, I need more life. But even in that, you think about, this is a young guy giving up his life. And it's a bigger thing. And even more so, Rick, you do have a heart. I mean, what is God going to use you for? And I know that has to be on your mind on just about a daily basis. Why me? Why did I get the heart? $1 million plus. How did I get it? Well, by God's grace and mercy. And he left you here for a reason. And all of us here, never feel suicide is an all-time high. I want to let you know, if you're here for a purpose. Don't you ever let the devil speak into your mind. Nobody cares about you. Nobody loves you. You'll be better off dead. No, you need to stay here until the Lord calls you home. Okay? There's a bigger purpose. And the only reason he hits us like that is because he wants God's plan to be pushed back. But God is still gracious. Always depend on him. There was a hand. Yes, sir.
You're saying that, this is all we know of Stephen here. I don't really think that ultimately he thought that it was going to be that way, but ultimately he was speaking truth.
was speaking what was in him. And the Lord had placed it there for him to speak because he was right on track. He went down to the genealogy of what had happened at the time. And he had a choice to pick and choose what he said, just like us. You know, we know what the Lord tells us to say sometimes, but we just ain't gonna go that route. And he realized what he was up against, and he may have known about the Levitical law that was gonna cause him death, but he was so into the moment that he was just willing to die for that cause. And like you said, you know, I know I'm not there yet. I would be picking and choosing that. Like pick somebody else, might not. But then there's been other times when we all have been in situations where we have done stuff and we have said stuff and we have wondered to ourselves, why the Lord did you do that? You know, we really could have been carried out. We realize that it's all in God's time with the way this is, because like you said, the loopholes, as you were speaking, and I was reading this and thinking about this, I was like how God is in control of two deaths that are so similar, but yet God is so meticulous in how he brings about the timing of death. Also, ultimately, it's the same thing, death, but the way they were brought about was totally different because there was not a loophole that they could get through to kill Christ. Christ had to die that way because that's the way the scripture said it had to be fulfilled. But for this, Stephen had to die this way so that we ourselves can understand and continue to know that Jesus Christ did rise from the dead and that he sits on the right hand of the Father. Because now we have this substantial that because that's what the scripture said. That's what he was doing.
Good. There was some other hands. Yes, sir.
Pastor, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at this, both these deaths they talk about, right? And Stephen. But you know, like we always say, it's always about God. And when God does something, there's always a reason behind it. I feel, no, I don't want to get into the, like you always said, I'm always getting into the lesson, but we have to realize it's about something that's coming. It's going to be a change in someone. That's going to be a great office. So I'm just saying that God don't do nothing for no reason. There's always a reason for something. And that's what makes him the greatest God we ever had, they will have.
81, someone read, please.
Acts 8. Now Saul was consenting to death. At that time, a great persecution arose against the church which was at Jerusalem. And they were all scattered throughout the region of Judah, Judea, and Samaria, except the apostles.
All right, it's amazing how we go from Stephen to Saul. You have a willing person to give his life for Christ, and then you have one who's running. And I believe, and it's in the commentary that we're going to look at a little later, that Saul had to be impacted by that death. I mean, just as Mother Kelly was talking, it had to do something to his psyche to see Stephen kneel down and pray to Jesus and ask for forgiveness upon those who are stoning. And Saul is standing there holding the coats, holding the togas of those who were stoning. It had to make an impact, but instead of breaking him, it causes him to become angry, all right, to try to root out all of those who would do this whole process. Someone read that first paragraph, please.
And then the Spirit of God introduces the name of Saul. Great strategy of soul were being born within him. Outwardly, his reign of terror would continue, but his days as a foe of Christianity were numbered.
This picture will never leave his mind. Just a precursor, though, we know Saul is going to be changed with Paul, but Saul himself is going to have to die too. All right, he's always, his life is always going to be about, hey, I'm ready to die, as I saw Stephen die. Go ahead, brother, go on to that next part.
Saul was consenting to Stephen's death, but in so doing, he was paving the way for his own undoing as an arch persecutor.
Isn't it amazing how many times have we gone against someone, been mean and ugly, but in essence, God is using that to change us, to get us exactly where we need to be at. So it was gruesome. It was a gruesome death, but God still is not stopped. His plan is so beautiful. Nothing is lost. And I love God because remember when he multiplied the fish and the bread, after he did that, he told them to go get the scraps. Nothing was lost. God losing them, we lose stuff, and we don't think about using everything that God has blessed us with in a proper way. But God uses everything. What a beautiful picture. Go ahead, brother, go on to that next paragraph.
A new era begins with the words, "At that time." Stephen's death seemed to trigger a widespread assault against the church. Believers were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria.
Go ahead.
The Lord had instructed his followers to begin their witness in Jerusalem, but then to branch out to Judea, Samaria, and to the end of the earth. Up to this time, their witness had been confined entirely to Jerusalem. Perhaps they had been timid about branching out. Now they are forced to do it by persecution.
So Saul, he's in the place. Persecution is started because of this martyr. What happens to the saints? Scattered. They're pushed out, which is forcing them to carry the good news. God had already told them. Jesus spoke this. And Mark, you see that he said, going to the outer skirts. I want you to go far, and they stayed in Jerusalem. We see it in Acts. We see it through the Gospels and other places. I want you to go. But they were like, no, we like our house. We like Jerusalem, our home. So when persecution came, it caused them to scatter or to push out. But they're still going to carry that good news. That's the powerful. More souls are going to be saved and brought to the knowledge of the truth. Go ahead with that last one, please.
From the human standpoint, it was a dark day for the believers. The life of a member of their fellowship had been laid down. They themselves were being chased like rabbits. But from the divine standpoint, it was not dark at all. A grain of wheat had been planted in the ground, and much fruit would inevitably result. The winds of affliction were scattering the seeds of the gospel to distant places, and who could estimate the extent of the harvest?
The key to our existence is to know that sometimes the things that we see are not really what we see. There's a bigger plan that's going on. And that's the key in our lives. You got to know that there's a bigger plan, because we all go through and we just can't see. All we see is just doom. Like, this is just a bad day. And God is saying, no, it's a good day. I know it doesn't feel like it. I know you're struggling. I know you're hurting. I know you are experiencing loss, but it's a good day. And I challenge you to start looking for that silver line, to start asking God, show me what you're doing. Help me to be a little part of your plan so that I can get some encouragement out of this. Because in every dark day, if you're a Christian, it's a good day. Really, it's a good day. God is working it out. All things work to the good of those who love the Lord and call according to his plan and his purpose. Very important. Yes, sir.
But as Christians, we seem to fall back on human nature because, you know, whenever someone always says this, a judgment day is coming a certain date, the way we were acting when 2000 came over, you know, Christians running to get water to store up and building storm cellars to hide or run to Jerusalem. We're scared. And I said, why are we scared if Christ is around the corner? We should be joyous.
We haven't matured. I think a lot of times it shows where our faith is. I mean, I don't think too many of us are ready to die right now. We don't have death wishes, and if we were standing in line, God said, I'm coming in here, I want to know who's going to be the next martyr for me. I don't think many of y'all would run. Nobody but Serrano, because he already has experience. Anybody jump out of planes. Willing to lay down their life for other folks. But not too many people would jump in line to be the second martyr or the third martyr. It's our nature. It's our nature. And I think it comes from, I know it comes from, we haven't fully submitted ourselves. We love life. We love life. It's a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry to keep people living. I mean, look at Moses Cone. I mean, they just keep building. Just keep building. I used to know it like the back of my hand. Now I got to get a map to find my way around. I mean, you go to Duke, you go $1 billion to keep folks alive. They don't care. Most people like, I don't care what it takes, just keep me alive. Well, you're not gonna be able to live there. I don't care. Just keep the machine on. Don't you touch that button. we hold on to the last, and it's all because our faith is lacking. Am I saying we shouldn't do that? That's not my argument. It's just that We're not like Stephen. We want more. God, give me more. And it comes from not understanding the direction for our lives. We're afraid somehow that we've missed it. Maybe I missed it in this life, but if we've done the will of God, then I think we should have a peace in our heart. It's time to go. And I've been around people like that. I'm okay with going.
But I read a wise man say once, you can't be ready to live for Christ until you're willing to die.
Amen. Good. Yes, ma'am.
To ourselves. I think I was talking about, I was actually talking about the martyrs. I pray every day to be, again, because Lord's put a burden in my heart that there are many, many people in this world who are persecuted and been martyred every day we don't hear about. So the question is, why is it that we don't see much here? And I listened to the testimony, just unbelievable testimonies of people who are being persecuted, killed, beheaded because of Christianity is spread in the Muslim countries, maybe even the faster rate than is here. But I think the difference there is that we get so used to our comfort zone here. And, they will walk miles and to go to church and hear the Word of God. The Word of God is so precious to a lot of them. And they have been enslaved and they've done, and so when they get life, and all of a sudden, I think it's the suffering. I think here we're so comfortable. We want our creature comforts, and we don't want anything to mess with that. But I think so. There again comes the suffering, the pain. We don't embrace suffering. We don't realize that suffering is a part of building our character. We don't teach our children that. We tell them you should have what you want, and sometimes the Lord will even allow us to not be able to have the things that we desire. I know in my life, the things that I so desired that I did not get was really what made me know what was inside of me. Could I still praise God? Could I really feel His presence, His grace upon me? Because when you have nothing, and all you have is God and His grace, then there's something inside of you that treasures that more than anything, peace of mind. There are people who would sell everything to have peace of mind. So I think the problem here is that we just want to be comfortable. And we don't want to, in order to die to be a martyr, I mean, you got to start dying to yourself to maybe miss a meal every now and then, to fast a little bit. We don't even want to take time out to sacrifice and deny our flesh anything. So I think if like you said Sunday, you were working the Word of God when you were ministering about being born of the Spirit, I think if we're truly born of the Spirit, only the Spirit can cause you to do what He did. Can cause those people to do what they did. They had a true born-again experience where there was an undeniable experience with Christ. And I think we're missing that undeniable, true born-again experience where I want Jesus, I want Him more than everything. I want Him more than my life. And I don't think we're getting that in the culture we live in because we're constantly listening to and seeing all that we could have, and even, a lot of the ministries, larger ministries are doing that, where they're going to prosperity in these things. It's all about me, making me happy. What can I get? What can I give? And we can get saved to be happy, The joy of the Lord is our strength, and He gives us joy, but that's deeper than being happy. You can have joy. I know I've had joy on my worst day, on my saddest day, and I didn't even understand that. God, why do I feel so much peace and joy? And everything, all I've gotten all day was bad news. All I've gotten all day was an attack on me, over and over and over again. But somehow at the end of the day, there's joy. And then there's a fellowship with Him, and the suffering for Christ. It isn't real suffering, but at least my flesh has died. I need you, Jesus, so much. And then He comes with that grace. So anyway, I just think that we're just too comfortable and we don't really understand our purpose for being here.
Read that next verse somebody, because that whole process kind of sums up dying daily. Verse 2.
And devout men carried Stephen to his burial and made great lamentation over him.
He's dead. It's over, at least the flesh. He fell asleep. But devout, what does devout mean? Devout mean? Devoted followers, loosely translating that. Devoted followers, and we believe of Christ. They realized, hey, we want to give him his last rites. The Pharisees, Sadducees, scribes, those who killed him, they just left him there under the rocks. They dig up his body and they carry him and they made great lamentation, or they cry over him. It shows some growth process. It shows they're feeling the human side, Stephen's dead. I mean, this was a great guy. He shouldn't have been killed like this, such a cruel way. But we know from the spiritual side, he just fell asleep. In essence, and we're going to see this later on in Acts as we continue on, at the death of some, there will be celebration in the spirit, that this was a good thing. And that's hard because we always see death as bad, final. And I always have to deal with that when I'm in funerals. I deal with the fact for a Christian, we do fall asleep, but we still deal with that fleshly side. And we do cry, we do weep, but we should have the hope. We're not like the world who has no hope. We have hope that we'll be able to see our loved ones again because of the fact that we are saved. Surrender.
Let's not get it twisted, Pastor, because I know, I've always felt we're going to go through a big persecution here. We're going to be martyrs for God. You know, I mean, a lot of people see those Christians over there, ISIS, cutting their heads, right? But did you know there's others that turned over to Muslims because they don't want to die? They got scared, and they give them a big old beating, and then they give them a weapon so they can fight along with them. It makes no sense. But all I know is, death is here. You never shake it off. I've always said, well, I just hope I'm living right by the time I get it out of here. That's all I worry about. I can't worry about what Faith thinks, what Josh thinks, what anybody thinks. John got to think for himself. But there's a lot of things that's coming to this world today, not far from now. I might not see it. You might not see it. You know, but it's coming. It's coming. The horn is blowing, Pastor.
Amen.
When I look at this, you talk about persecution. You know, the church is going to be persecuted regardless, just because of the word God says it's going to be persecuted. Could it be because we are actually standing for God? Because I see in this situation the church is persecuted because Saul, because Stephen stood up as a child of God. Now, we're not persecuted on the same level in America. We are being persecuted, but it's not because Christians are standing up. It is being persecuted, and Christians are set back and letting it happen because they don't want to say anything about it. So the thing is where are we going to be able to stand? Are we going to stand for God regardless of which way it flows? And I believe that's where we have to be if we say that we're going to be true Christians. So many times, and like you said, you know, it was seen as a good thing when a person dies, but I look at that in the same sense that when people are standing for Christ and misfortunate things happen, though you feel bad for them, but in the same sense, when they're standing for Christ and you see them exemplify Christ-like behavior, like forgiving somebody, you say, wow, you know, that's a big thing to somebody. It's encouraging because it also gives an opportunity for witness to go out. And I look at the Douglas family situation, I'm going to bring it up. It's a misfortunate situation, but I feel pretty confident in their belief in Christ that hopefully they'll have an opportunity to witness the forgiveness of Christ in all things. And I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing, showing that at the foot of the cross, Christ has forgiveness for all things in all circumstances, in all situations, and we have to love through those things. So I think in the midst of persecution, it's seen here, like I said, he died, he stood, he said what was right because of that. And it's like, oh, Stephen, why did you say that? Now they chasing them and killing people, and we're gradually supposed to be a Christian nation, dying a slow death of persecution within itself, but it's not because nobody is really standing up. And even when you have a Christian that stands up and says the right thing, the minute the world says, well, you shouldn't have said that, they come back and say, no, I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Right? But what they said was correct and right on point.
Someone read verse 3, and we're going to see this process as we're talking about persecution and even standing up.
As for Saul, he made out the church, buried every house and dragged off
And Tony has brought up persecution on the side that we're sitting back. But this specific persecution, they weren't doing anything. They were just loving the Lord, growing in the Lord. Because of Stephen and Saul being there, all of a sudden Saul is pushed by demonic powers or spirits. And he goes to people who are not even, they're not standing up, they're not on the news, They're just doing their thing in private, worshiping, loving the Lord, and persecution comes into their house. And I think that's the big persecution. We expect the folks that are out there on the front can expect to be persecuted. And I'm concerned, the Duggars, you brought up that, as you look into the story, they knew some things that would happen earlier, and they were hoping it wouldn't come up again. But anytime you put yourself in a public limelight, you start dealing with politics, going against folks who are powerful. If you got anything in your life, it's going to come up. All right? It's going to come up. And we all need to know that. Brother McLaughlin, you sit right here. When you're dealing with the public, you got a lot of stuff. You got a lot of stuff. Anybody who stands up before, your life is put on scrutiny. We expect that. But these Christians are not out front. And that's the major part of persecution. When you're not on CNN saying, homosexuality is wrong. No, you just try to mind your own business. And they start coming in your house, dragging you out because they saw you pray. Or they heard you say something to a coworker quietly sharing Jesus. But you're persecuted. Or you did say, you know what, I love you as a person, but homosexuality is wrong. And all of a sudden, they defame you, come in and try to rip you apart. I think that's the persecution that's going to come very hard that we see here. Look at this, again, the name Saul. With unbounded energy, he is harassing the church, dragging his hapless victims from their homes, and committing them to prison. If only he could forget Stephen. Such poise, such unshakable conviction, the face of an angel. He must drown out the memory, and he seeks to do it by stepping up his attacks on Stephen's fellow believers. Isn't that the devil? Really, he's attacking. I'm actually seeing this. He's trying to change the mindset of the church. Right? And when we get away from the word, it's going to be easy to do that. And I see a lot of fellowships getting away from the word. You got to have the word. You got to get it in your mind, because oftentimes the flesh wants the easy way out. Okay, so we don't want to cause trouble. We don't need problems. So we embrace things that are contrary to God's will. And we see here at this point what the enemy is doing, coming through Saul. He's like, I'm going to drag you anything that says Christ, I'm going to make you pay. And I think it makes him feel good in some senses, because Stephen died with such poise, as was used in that. He died, and it was like, I'm going to show you some Christians that'll scream, that'll cry, that'll break down, that'll even recant the faith. And we're going to experience that in days and times. And if pressure was put against us like this, what kind of people would we be? If they came in our house, I heard some of you got guns. And if they came to your house, you go, you'd be like, you'd be calling on Jesus as you send some people to hell. I mean, this whole process, and I'm concerned. I'm concerned because we got the double locks, and we going to protect our property. We believe in that. Where are we on this whole persecution and submission thing when it comes to Christ?
And, it wasn't that they believe in God. They believe in God. They believe in God, but it was just Jesus. That was this whole thing, was about Christianity. They always believed in Jesus. So that's kind of like it is today. You get in the crowd, okay, we will all pray together, we're going to get together. We got Jews, Muslims, and Christians. And it's okay for you to pray and say what you want to, but just tone it down a little bit. I'm saying that about Jesus. So you pray to your God and everything. And that's what this was about. Jesus. You talk about God all you want to. You can pray to God in your own. I ain't gonna mess with you. This fellow Jesus, this don't mess with you.
Amen. Or we'll kill you. Well, then, yes, ma'am.
But I don't think that we need to be afraid of what would happen if persecution comes. Because I believe that if you're saved, God gives us enough strength for whatever we need to go through. And so maybe right now we're all ready to recant because we're not in that situation. But if we were faced with denying Jesus, I feel like there would be a burst of just this peace and joy, and I can do this. I know I've been in some situations that I thought I would never be able to get through, but when I got to them, Jesus was with me the whole entire way. And I was like, wow. And then I got out of them and I was waiting for Jesus to come back and he wasn't there the same way. I'm like, well, where did you go when, you were here all big and bad with me? But sometimes God gives us what we need and when we need it right then. And so that's always been my prayer, God, whatever I need to do, whether that's persecution or just going to school or whatever, give me enough strength for that day to get through and to be a Christian.
So the question is not necessarily persecution, is if you say. If you say, it's going to be all right. But you got to know that you know, and God is going to supply what's needed to be supplied at that time. Yes, sir.
Actually, what we're doing now, we're inviting persecution at home. Because if you have the TV on, you allow the ideas to persecute your faith. And so you're dealing with commercialism, capitalism, and everything else that is constantly putting you at odds about should I do God's way or should I do the world?
Great point. What are we allowing to passively come into our home? They're not tearing down the walls, but they've got more intelligent there. They just pipe it in on our radios, pipe it in on our TVs, and they say, you know what? How do we mess them up? How do we get them away from their faith? And they not even know it. And we just allow it. I mean, we all know that. Well, maybe you don't all, but you should know that. When we take in things that are contrary to God, it affects our decision making. I'll prove it. How many of you seen a commercial for Burger King, Wendy's, and you got hungry? Yeah, you do. That's they put them there. It's $1 billion commercials simply because they have an effect on us. They really do. They used to use subconscious things. They would use a word in the background so softly that you really couldn't hear it, but subconsciously, and they actually outlawed those because it was affecting people. It was really getting into their subconscious, and they were doing certain things. In the same respect, the enemy is smart. He's been around a long time. He's taken down folks. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sometimes you really already made up. He said anybody live with him, he can fight. He's already made up what he's going to do. And so now this is what we're getting into. It's going to be on this Christian journey, but we already got our mind made up what we're going to do. And statement, everything that is depending on these government, that's not the answer to our problem. It's to shoot, and ask questions later. That's not the answer to the Christian problem. We have to take that faith and believe that we can take care of us.
Someone read verse 4. We'll get some more hands in.
Therefore, those who scattered went everywhere preaching the word.
They're scattered because of persecution, dragged out, some put in prison. All were in Keto. Some were just put in there for a period of time just because he's wreaking havoc on the church. But as they're scattered, they're moving to different places because they're trying to get away from Saul. Guess what they're doing? Proclaiming the word. Isn't God amazing? All right, I'm going to get you out there somehow. They were quiet. They were in their houses. And time you do bring a point, God is like, I can use this. I can use the devil to propagate the good news. It's an amazing factor. So, and generally when you study history, persecution pushes the gospel out. Really, it always. And that's been the trouble with the devil. That's why I think the attack that's happening now is more in the passive state. He knows when persecution comes, the church doesn't die. The church grows. I'm serious, when more people are dying for their faith, you got to make a decision, a choice. So the saints actually become stronger in that process because they know, hey, if I die, I'm with Christ. So that whole proposition changes. So here we see, as they're scattered, the word is carried out. Serena.
I heard what the chairman said about guns and all that stuff. But the only thing I can say about this is what I'm in awe about is I don't know why in the world he never took me out. I mean, he just let, I've done things and seen things that nobody in this world ever, well, I wouldn't admit, I wouldn't tell you, but I've done things that are not right. And things have happened to me that are not right. But still, the only thing that keeps me in awe is he let me live through all that. He let me live through all that. And to me, that shows that there is a God. And a lot of people say, you're crazy for going out there. Well, I did what I had to do. I was there at the time. That was my ministry, if you want to call it that, but it wasn't. But you know, I was there.
Purpose. Yeah, purpose. They needed you. That's what it was. It wouldn't have been the same woman without you. I guarantee you. You would have prayed hard. Yes, ma'am. Oh, okay. All right. Let's just go ahead. Look at this next verse. Someone read verse 5.
Then Philip went down to the city of Samaria and preached Christ to them.
So they're scattered. The first martyr, Stephen, was a deacon. That whole process, that connection, that servanthood. And now we see Stephen, or we see Philip. He goes to Samaria and he preaches. Philip, the deacon of chapter 6, headed north to the city of Samaria. Look at God. All right, one's dead, send somebody else. This whole process. There are always others. God used you. There's going to be somebody else. Someone read verse 6, please.
And the multitudes with one accord heeded the things spoken by Philip, hearing and seeing the miracles which he did.
So he is being used of God. It's bigger than his office. He was a table. He just cleaned tables. He took care of the widows. But he's on fire for the Lord. He's excited for the Lord. God is using him in miracles, signs, and wonders. And look at these last verses for tonight. I just want to keep them in your mind. 7 through 11. Someone read, please.
The unclean spirits, crying with a loud voice, came out of men who were possessed, many who were paralyzed and lame were healed, and there was a great joy in that city.
Go ahead.
But there was a certain man called Simon, who previously practiced sorcery in the city, and astonished the people of Samaria, claiming that he was someone great, to whom they all gave heed, from the least to the greatest, saying, This man is the great power of God. And they heeded him because he had astonished them with his sorceries for a long time.
All right. What I want you to do, I gave you a little bit more extra scriptures. I want you to do study. I want us to decide. We're going to see some things with Simon. Was he saved or not? Now, there's a lot of commentary. I'm going to argue from the fact that he wasn't saved, but I want you to really think through that process, because we're going to see people that are added to the body, and they've got some issues. Remember with Ananias and Sapphira, we had a discussion over that. So we're going to go in this whole process of looking at Simon and how God is actually using Philip in Simon's life. All right, so please study ahead. Any final questions, comments? Come on to your feet. Let's close out in prayer.